Alright. Okay, that light is good enough. Okay. I don't need to look for this. Wait for this. Boom. And about that. Close. Move that there. Right here. This with that smaller. A little bit more smaller. A bit more narrow. A bit more narrow. A bit more short. A bit more narrow. A bit more narrow. Yeah, have those two right there. Cool, so I'll be able to see that. That is set up. Window capture. There we go. That was cancel. Again, there it is, motherfucker. Hiding from me and shit. Alright, so we're gonna. This probably be more of like a fun, interesting video. Then we're gonna get into the real shit. Into the real fucking shit. But fuck down. And okay. Boom. Move that shit over a bit. Make it a little smaller. It doesn't have to be that small. That works. That's fine. Okay. And okay. All right. There we go. All right. All right. Good to go.
Are you free? Free to choose what you do and make decisions? Or are you an NPC, unable to decide anything for yourself? You feel that you have control over your life, or at least what you'll have for breakfast. But this may be an illusion. Physics actually may fall.
I'm probably gonna agree with most of this, only because like how much of your life is already determined based on geographically speaking. Like, isn't it a coincidence that if you're like Hindu, you happen to most likely live in Asia? Like, it's like, isn't it weird? I was like, unless you like, oh, hello, streamer Mary and Carrie Thomas. I'm doing fine. I'm just playing and reacting like every other streamer. Don't reinvent the wheel if it's working for other people, right? But yeah.
Force you to go through life.
Fuck, that's not what I wanted to do. Shit. What I was gonna say is. Fuck, what I was gonna say. Oh. It feels a bit weird that I grew up in a Christian house, like being like living in the United States. Like, is that like? After a while, it's not coincidental. Like, or for people who look at other countries, coming from the United States, people who look at other countries, y'all age of consent is 16. That's insane. But if we grew up in a country where the age of consent was 21, and then we looked at the United States, y'all age of consent is 18. That's insane. Like, no matter, it doesn't really, like, a lot of what you believe, what you accept, what you think is right or wrong, how your worldview, how you think government should be ran, a lot of it is just based on like geographic. So in that way, you kind of are an NPC, like quite literally. Yeah.
Life as if on rails, with no free will at all. You experience free will all the time, like when you decided to watch this video instead of doing something useful. Free will is your ability to decide by yourself what you do. It means that the future is an open arena that you can shape with your actions. It's at the core of human relationships. It means you are responsible for your actions, which is the basis of our moral and legal systems. There are too many dimensions for one short video: moral, psychological, biological, so we'll focus on the most essential part. Is free will even possible? two main philosophical camps are fighting about this. No matter how we represent them, they'll be upset about it, so we'll use our own words. The first camp claims that the very idea of free will is fundamentally incompatible with the laws of the universe.
I don't know why I was being annoying.
You are an NPC. Whatever you exactly are, it's somehow made up of your physical brain and body.
Sure.
And these are made of cells, which are made of proteins, which are made of atoms and particles like protons or electrons.
Okay.
So fundamentally, you're a specific, quite lovely, dynamic pattern of particles. Particles have no will, no motivation, no freedom. They blindly follow the laws of physics.
Sure.
And we don't know why, but most laws of physics are deterministic, which means that things happen the way they do because of the things that came before. If you play pool and hit a ball at a specific speed and angle, the laws of physics tell you exactly how all the balls on the table will behave, their speeds, recoil directions, everything. These laws completely decide the behavior of all balls on the table.
I get what he's saying, but at the same time, it's like, not really sure how you account for, like, I feel like consciousness, like, makes, like, the whole thing different. Or, not different, but, like, you can't easily dismiss it. The ability to be able to, like, even if it is an illusion, it's not really there. The experiential difference in being able to, like, let's say, like, let's say a dog hurts its arm or something. It might lick its wounds or something, but it won't do stuff, or won't think about the capacity for, like, well, if I don't heal this, it'll get infected, so I'm gonna make sure to put, like, some antibacterial shit on it, right? And then wrap it up. I'm not just gonna lick it. I'm gonna make sure that it's clean first before I leave it alone. Like that, like, level of being able to be like, I can learn this about the world and then apply it in the future. I mean, I guess you could say they do the same thing on a basic level. I don't know. Maybe it's a I think therefore I am thing is what I'm thinking about. I don't fucking know. But maybe that's it. Maybe that's what I'm thinking about.
At the microscopic level, things work very much like that, only without players. Actions and reactions affect all the particles in the universe, creating a chain of causal effects that extends throughout time from the past to the future. Things happen, making other things happen. Now imagine that if right after the Big Bang, a super smart supercomputer looked at every single particle in the universe and noted all their properties. Just by applying the deterministic laws of physics, it should be able to predict what all the particles in existence would be doing until the end of time. But if you're made of particles and it's technically possible to calculate what particles will do forever, then you never decided anything. Your past, present, and future were already predetermined and decided at the Big Bang. That would mean there is a kind of fate, and you are not free to decide anything.
It would also mean we can't hold anybody accountable for anything at the same time. Because you wouldn't necessarily have to go against this. Well, you're saying that a person could not have done anything otherwise. They did not make that choice to murder somebody. They could not have done otherwise. It's not like you're punishing people because, you know what I'm saying? It's like everyone, I guess you'd be like, everyone that was gonna kill is gonna kill, and everybody that wasn't isn't. It's like, all right, but
may feel like you make decisions, but you're actually on autopilot. The motions of the particles that make up your brain cells that made you watch this video were decided 14 billion years ago. You're just in the room when it happens. You're only witnessing how the universe inside you unfolds in real time. But this can't be true because of quantum mechanics.
Yeah, but I am just what do you mean I? There is no I then. Right? What do you mean I am just here watching it unfold? Who the fuck is I? There is no I, actually, when you think about it, right? Based on this explanation, I don't even understand the sentence now.
Right? Quantum processes are intrinsically random, not deterministic, and can't be predicted with total certainty. On the quantum pool table, balls can go randomly left or up or banana. Their behavior isn't set by what came before, but randomly decided in real time. But for the no free will camp, this doesn't affect their argument. They think that since quantum processes are random, they don't allow you to make any decisions. Because if there's randomness for the things that fundamentally make up your brain and body, these random processes make the decisions for you. How? Say an electron can randomly go right or left. If it goes left, it triggers electric currents between your neurons that create a neuronal process which triggers a long chain of actions that make you watch a YouTube video.
Okay.
Or it goes right and makes you clean your room. Just because the chain is extremely complex doesn't mean you have any control over it. So maybe your fate was not decided at the Big Bang, but it is decided at this very moment. The important part is that it's not decided by you. You get no say in this. You have no free will.
When you say, at the point to say that I don't have free will anymore, then how much can there be an I? Actually. Because if you say, like, it's kind of like when people say it is raining, what is raining? The sky is raining? We don't usually say it like that, but we just say it is raining. That, I feel like that's the same thing you would have to say for here, right? Which, to some extent, I agree with, that there really isn't an I, but it's just, we don't, our society would break down if we actually looked at it this way. It actually would break down.
Wow.
This
is kind of a bummer because the argument fundamentally seems to make sense. Except, no, screams the free will side. This is a really bad way to think about the universe. You are the main character. We know that we can reduce everything that exists to its basic particles and the laws that guide them. Well, this...
Well, it went to a... Well, hey, there's absolutely no free will. No, that's not the case. Okay, what do you have to say? You're the main character. It's like, all right, bro. Well, shit. Why? Why is it... I'm guessing it can't be both. There cannot be elements of both. Is that true?
Makes physics feel like the only scientific discipline that actually matters. There's a problem. You can't explain everything in our universe only in terms of particles. One key fact about reality that we can't explain by looking just at electrons and quantum stuff is emergence. Emergence is when many small things together create new fundamental traits that didn't exist before. A drop of water is just a sextillion H2O molecules. If you get water on your pants, they get wet. But what is wetness? H2O molecules are not wet, but your pants are definitely wet now. Many small things together just created something new that doesn't exist at the level of the individual molecules. Emergence occurs at all levels of reality, and reality seems to be organized in layers: atoms, molecules, cells, tissues, organs, you, society. Put many things in one layer together and they'll create the next layer up. Every time they do, entirely new properties emerge. One atom can't handle information, but many of them together can form a DNA molecule. Molecules are not alive, but many of them can form a cell, and cells are alive. With each jump up the complexity ladder, the rules of what's possible change. Completely new things emerge that are much more.
Yeah, so theoretically speaking, if that pattern were to continue, it could actually just break the laws of physics at a certain point, because the rules can become so much more complex and so much, yeah. I feel like, from what I've heard people describe quantum physics as, that there's a level of, yeah, what the guy said in the video earlier, like that aspect is like approaching that, if not already broken through that limitation. So
more than the sum of their parts. And here, the reductionist view of the universe breaks down. The layers of reality need each other to make sense. You can explain living things with cells, cells with molecules, and molecules with atoms. But because of emergence, you can't start with quantum particles and reconstruct the universe. You can't explain galaxies with quantum mechanics or human psychology with quarks. This is not the whole story. Reality is not just structured in layers, but for some reason, the layers are also largely independent of each other. Things existing within the same layer can influence each other and maybe a layer up or down. but often they don't seem to influence things much higher up or down. To figure out how
I mean, that pattern is replicated throughout everything, though. So, like, you have a big corporation, and let's say you have, like, I don't know, 100,000 Walmart stores. I don't know if it's that many, but let's say you do. If one of those stores fail, it might affect the local economy of nearby Walmarts, sure, but like it's not like the entire company is gonna feel it the same way as Walmarts in your area or other stores in that yeah, is localized. So it's just like I don't know. You can do that with any. You can do that with governments. A local government did something. Does that affect the federal government? Well, it probably affects the county government more, and then the state government a little bit less than that. The region a little bit less than that. It's just like depending on like. Yes, that fucking pink lipstick, bitch. Thank you, stupid ass bitch, making me wait forever. Okay, yeah. So y'all get it.
how your organs work, you don't need quarks.
Bitch, I'm gonna kill you
To
again.
understand
I don't have to
politics,
kill you.
you
Just
don't need to
kill
know
you
about
both.
cells. If you want to explain things happening on one layer, you can only do that by staying close to that layer. No, screams the no free will camp in frustration. You can't just use magic to explain free will. But the emergence argument doesn't invoke magic. It just says that thinking about free will in terms of determinism and fundamental laws is a dead end. A kind of category error, like trying to explain galaxies by looking at your digestive tract.
And it's also it's just like it's one of those things where I feel like people think like, oh, it has to be this or that. It's kind of like there's two like schools of thought for morals typically, like deontology, and I think the other one is I think it's the most broadest is consequentialism. Um, yeah. So, but both of these things, like when they're pushed to extremes, lead into the other one. So it's just like, wouldn't the lesson be that we can't just morals are very dynamic in the same way that life and the universe is very dynamic. So the idea you would be able to just isolate all of it into one specific categories, like, but humans for some reason it's like that's you can't accept that. No, everything has to be explained by something or by this one thing that makes it easier. And it's like no, it doesn't. No one where does the universe does not have an obligation to explain itself to you? It doesn't.
It's part of a reductionist school of thinking about the universe that very successfully shaped science for a long time, but that's challenged by emergence. So maybe trying to understand free will by looking at fundamental particles, deterministic laws, and quantum mechanics misses the point. The question we should be asking is, which layer of reality is relevant to free will? Well, just like no individual molecule creates wetness, not a single cell in your brain wants to watch YouTube. But one layer up, your brain, made of 80 billion interconnected neurons, does. On this layer, all the things relevant to you emerge: your consciousness, character, feelings, your fears and dreams. This is where you emerge. We don't know why and how, but we know that you're here right now. How all the things going on in your brain play off each other to make you who you are.
So in other words, everything is like on like the down to its basic level is deterministic, but the broader we go up and the more dynamic and once consciousness kind of emerges itself, it's no longer that. So it exists and doesn't exist at the same time, which is, it's a little bit of both, like I said earlier.
Is a whole different can of worms. But on this layer of reality, you are part of the decision process. Because at this level, you are just one more physical cause of whatever happens in your brain. You are shaped by your decisions, and your decisions are shaped by you. You have a say about this layer of reality. You are not.
Spiritual people have been saying for like the longest, like you don't, like it's not 100% you, you're the co-creator. Like you work with the universe and the universe works with you. You know.
just witnessing how the universe inside you unfolds, you're actually taking part in it. And you're free to do so however you see fit. At least this is how some on the free will side see it. Conclusion and opinion. So, who's right? Is there free will? We don't know. If you ask us personally, we think the argument for free will is more appealing because it brings the complexity of the universe to the table. Maybe existence is just the sum of its parts, but at least for now, it seems the universe is not that simple. But even if we don't have free will, it's not clear what that changes for practical purposes. You and us, we humans, on a purely subjective basis, feel like we have free will and that your decisions are yours to make. As long as we're not sure either way, and if it feels like you're making decisions, what does it matter if a non-existent supercomputer could have calculated the future at the Big Bang? Or if quantum stuff all the way down randomly nudges your cells one way or the other? Free will that feels free is good enough for us. In any case, now you can decide what to do next. Maybe get some stuff done. Or watch more of our videos. It's your decision. Probably.
I'm streaming, but so that's...
At least you can pick which video to watch next. In theory, what you have really almost no control over is how the state of the world is presented to you in the news. Algorithms are constantly working behind the scenes to decide which information to show you, and alarmist headlines get amplified over straightforward reporting. But Ground News, the sponsor of this video, can give you back a feeling of independence. They gather related news articles from around the world in one place so you can compare coverage. For example, last month the UK government passed a bill to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda. This bill was widely covered by more than 150 news sources around the world. And using the Ground News blind spot feed, you can see how this event is being framed by both sides of the political spectrum, instead of one side that an algorithm has decided you align with. Right-leaning sources focused on the idea that
I ain't gonna lie. The fact that the existence of a website like this would probably make people angry because it makes it harder to propagandize people. Just a thought. Just a thought.
Migrants are continuing to cross the channel despite the bill's attempt to act as a deterrent, while left-leaning sources focus on human rights groups' opposition to the bill. This way you can compare different viewpoints from all over the world, see how the story and coverage change, and be better equipped to engage in constructive dialogue with those who hold different views. Go to ground.news/nutshell to give it a try. If you sign up through this link, you'll get 40% off the unlimited access plan. We think they do an important job. If you're not completely free in your decision to stop scrolling, at least take control over what occupies your mind. Buckle up. Our latest limited edition pin is available for pre-order now, and this time, it's personal. It represents nothing less than the philosophy of Kurzgesagt. This world is a scary place. As far as we know, the whole universe will die one day. What does life even mean? Will we ever figure out why we exist? This can be terrifying. But this also means that we're not bound by any rules or purpose. If our life is all we get to experience, then it's the only thing that matters. We are truly free in a universe-sized playground. So, we might as well aim to be happy and make the most of it. Counter existential dread with optimistic nihilism. And wear this pin...
Why do you even have, I don't know, existential dread? The universe is gonna be destroyed, or, I don't know, our sun is gonna experience heat death or whatever, and this planet won't be, like... First of all, you're gonna be dead by then. You don't even know if humans will still exist by then. You don't know what was gonna... It's just like, what... Why even have... Where's the dread coming from? You know what I'm saying? Like... I don't know, bro. It's just like, I don't... You know what I'm saying? It's like, why worry about something that you literally... Like, you can't, like, not... Like, what are you gonna do? Like, what can you do? And if there is absolutely nothing you can do, and it's outside of you, it's beyond you, then it's like... What do people say? Let God handle that? Or that's something that God is going to take care of or has to take care of. You can't do it. Like, just look at it that way.
As a reminder to make the most of your precious time on Earth. We will too. Like life and the universe itself, this pin's existence is fleeting. It's available only for pre-order and only for 72 hours. So complete your Kurzgesagt pin collection or start a new one. The next limited edition pin will be revealed soon. Every single purchase unlocks another moment we get to spend creating and perfecting our videos. Thank you so much for your support. To help you make the most of your life, we've created a curiosity guide that will take you on epic adventures to change your perspective on the world.
Oh, okay. All right, now that's over.
The Great Lie We Told.
I'm gonna watch this next, yes, but I'm going to use the bathroom first.
Ourselves that
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna use the bathroom first before I get back to this. So, give me one moment. Fuck. Yes. All right. Fuck. No, let's do that. So my ass don't hurt. Oh. Okay. Okay. And give me 1 second, y'all. I will slide you over like that. I'm sorry, I'm doing something on my phone. Like a second. Fuck. Discord. I don't feel like dealing with this dude right now. That's the funny thing. I don't feel like dealing with this dude at the moment, so I'm not going to. I just don't feel like it. I'm talking about a person in game. You can see at the bottom, he messaged me, "Hey," he's trying to sell me something, but okay. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. Alright. Okay. What are we doing? Yeah, Ben Shapiro. Yeah. Okay. We're gonna increase the speed on this a little bit, though. Playback speed. We're gonna jump up to. We're gonna do custom. We're gonna do 1.3 speed. Okay.
The great lie we tell ourselves is that people who are evil are not like us. They're a class apart. Everybody in history who has sinned is a person who's very different from me. Robert George, the philosopher over at Princeton, he's fond of doing a sort of thought experiment in his classes where he asks people to raise their hand if they'd lived in Alabama in 1861. How many of you would be abolitionists? And everybody raises their hand. And he says, of course, that's not true. Of course, that's not true. The best protection against evil is recognizing that it lies in every human heart and the possibility that it takes you over.
Do you ever sit back, in the quiet of your own mind and think, am I participating in evil? The following is a conversation with Ben Shapiro, a conservative political commentator, host of The Ben Shapiro Show, co-founder of The Daily Wire, and author of several books, including The Authoritarian Moment, The Right Side of History, and Facts Don't Care About Your Feelings. Whatever your political leanings, I humbly ask that you try to put those aside and listen with an open mind, trying to give the most charitable interpretation of the words we say. This is true in general for this podcast, whether the guest is Ben Shapiro or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Donald Trump or Barack Obama. I will talk to everyone from every side, from the far left to the far right, from presidents to prisoners, from artists to scientists, from the powerful to the powerless, because we are all human, all capable of good and evil, all with fascinating stories and ideas to explore. I seek only to understand, and in so doing, hopefully add a bit of love to the world. This is a Lex Fridman podcast. To support it, please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, dear friends, here's Ben Shapiro. Let's start with a difficult topic. What do you think about the comments made by Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, about Jewish people?
They're awful. and anti-Semitic, and they seem to get worse over time. They started off with the bizarre DEFCON 3 tweet, and then they went into even more stereotypical garbage about Jews and Jews being sexual manipulators. I think that's the Pete Davidson, Kim Kardashian stuff, and then Jews running all of the media, Jews being in charge of the financial sector, Jewish people. I mean, I called it on my show, there's Sherman Nazism, and it is. I mean, it's like right from Protocols of the Elders of Zion type stuff.
Do you think those words come from pain? Where do they come from?
And, it's always hard to try and read somebody's mind. What he looks like to me, just having experience in my own family with people who are bipolar, is he seems like a bipolar personality. He seems like somebody who is in the middle of a manic episode. And when you're manic, you tend to say a lot of things that you shouldn't say. And you tend to believe that they're the most brilliant things ever said. The Washington Post did an entire piece speculating about how bipolarism played into the kind of stuff that Ye was saying. And it's hard for me to think that it's not playing into it, especially because even if he is an anti-Semite, and I have no reason to suspect he's not, given all of his comments, if he had an ounce of common sense, he would stop at a certain point. And bipolarism tends to drive you well past the point where common sense applies. So, I mean, I would imagine it's coming from that. I mean, from his comments, I would also imagine that he's doing the logical mistake that a lot of anti-Semites or racists or bigots do, which is, somebody hurt me, that person is a Jew, therefore all Jews are bad. And that jump from a person did something to me I don't like, who's a member of a particular race or class, and therefore everybody of that race or class.
The sad thing is, that's how, almost, I would say almost everybody acts that way. It's a sad thing. I don't know how you get people past, their own experiences. I don't know how you could, or think beyond them, at least.
Class is bad. I mean, that's textbook bigotry, and that's pretty obviously what Ye's engaging in here.
So jumping from the individual to the group.
That's the way he's been expressing it, right? He keeps talking about his Jewish agents. And I watched your interview with him, and he kept saying, so just name the agents, right? Just name the people who are screwing you. And he wouldn't do it. Instead, he just kept going back to the general, the group, the Jews in general. I mean, that's textbook bigotry. And if it were put in any other context, he would probably recognize it as such.
To the degree his words fuel hate in the world, what's the way to reverse that process? What's the way to alleviate the hate?
I mean, when it comes to alleviating the kind of stuff that he's saying, obviously debunking it, making clear that what he's saying is garbage. But the reality is that I think that for most people who are in any way engaged with these issues, I don't think they're being convinced to be anti-Semitic by Ye. I mean, I think that there's a group of people who may be swayed that anti-Semitism is acceptable because Ye is saying what he's saying, and he's saying so very loudly, and he's saying it over and over. But I think that, for example, there were these signs that were popping up in Los Angeles saying Ye is right. Well, that group's been out there posting anti-Semitic signs on the freeways for years. And there are groups like that posting anti-Semitic signs where I live in Florida. They've been doing that for years, well before Ye was saying this sort of stuff. It's just latest opportunity to kind of jump on that particular bandwagon. But listen, I think that people do have a moral duty to call that stuff out.
So there is a degree to which it normalizes that kind of idea that Jews control the media, Jews control X institution. Is there a way to talk about a high representation of a group, like Jewish people, in a certain...
The weird thing that gets to me is, depending on what side of the political aisle you're on, you can make... Because I see it happen all the time whenever you talk about, the 1350 shit. Black people are 13% of the population, 50%, if it's not racist to say that, it should equally not be equal to say, oh, well, 40% of the people who own banks are Jewish. 35% of the people who own this Hollywood crap, or whatever the hell, is, I don't know, is Jew. Why is one okay and acceptable and it's just facts, or the other one's anti-Semitic? Explain the difference between saying a disproportionate number of this group of people are in this area. That's in that statement in and of itself, because making that statement alone isn't racist against, it's just people pick and choose when it's a problem and when it's not, I've noticed. Yeah. I'll wait for you to stop moving. Okay. Yeah.
Institution like the media or Hollywood and so on, without it being a hateful conversation.
Sure, of course. A high percentage of higher than statistically represented in the population percentage of Hollywood agents are probably Jewish. A higher percentage of lawyers generally are probably Jewish. A high percentage of accountants are probably Jewish. Also, a higher percentage of engineers are probably Asian. The statistical truths are statistical truths. It doesn't necessarily mean anything about the nature of the people who are being talked about. There are a myriad of reasons why people might be disproportionately in one arena or another, ranging from the cultural to sometimes the genetic. I mean, there's certain areas of the world where people are better long-distance runners because of their genetic adaptations in those particular areas of the world. That's not racist. That's just fact. I mean, what starts to get racist is when you are attributing a bad characteristic to an entire population based on the notion that some members of that population are doing bad things.
Yeah, there's a jump between. It's also possible that record label owners as a group have a kind of culture that F's over artists,
Sure.
Doesn't treat artists fairly. And it's also possible that there's a high representation of Jews in the group of people that own record labels. But it's that small but a very big leap that people take from the group that own record labels to all Jews.
For sure. And I think that one of the other issues also is that anti-Semitism is fascinating because it breaks down into so many different parts. Meaning that if you look at sort of different types of anti-Semitism, if you're a racist against black people, it's typically because you're racist based on the color of their skin. If you're racist against the Jews, you're anti-Semitic, then there are actually a few different ways that breaks down. Right? You have anti-Semitism in terms of ethnicity, which is like Nazi-esque anti-Semitism. You have Jewish parentage, you have a Jewish grandparent, therefore your blood is corrupt and you are inherently going to have bad properties. Then there's sort of old school religious anti-Semitism, which is that the Jews are the killers of Christ, or the Jews are the sons of pigs and monkeys, and therefore Judaism is bad, and therefore Jews are bad. And sort of, and the way that you get out of that anti-Semitism, historically speaking, is mass conversion, which most anti-Semitism for a couple thousand years actually was not ethnic. It was much more rooted in this sort of stuff. Right? If a Jew converted out of the faith, then the anti-Semitism was quote unquote alleviated. And then there's a sort of bizarre anti-Semitism, political anti-Semitism, and that is...
Look, we hate you so much. Just promise us you'll stop being a Jew. All right. I'm just like...
members of a group that I don't like are disproportionately Jewish, therefore all Jews are members of this group or are predominantly represented in this group. So you'll see Nazis saying the communists are Jews. You'll see communists saying the Nazis are Jews. Or you'll see communists saying that the capitalists, rather, are Jews. And so that's the weird thing about anti-Semitism. It's kind of like the Jews behind every corner. It's basically a big conspiracy theory. Unlike a lot of other forms of racism, which are not really conspiracy theory, anti-Semitism tends to be a conspiracy theory about the levers of power being controlled by a shadowy cadre of people who are getting together behind closed doors to control things.
Yeah, the most absurd illustration of anti-Semitism, just like you said, is Stalin versus Hitler over Poland, that every bad guy was a Jew.
Right.
It was like, so every enemy, there's a lot of different enemy groups, intellectuals, political, and so on, military, and behind any movement that is considered the enemy for the Nazis and any movement that's considered the enemy for the Soviet army are the Jews. What does the fact that Hitler took power teach you about human nature? When you look back at the history of the 20th century, what do you learn from that time?
I mean, there are a bunch of lessons to Hitler taking power. The first thing I think people ought to recognize about Hitler taking power is that the power had been centralized in the government before Hitler took it. So if you actually look at the history of Nazi Germany, the Weimar Republic had effectively collapsed. The power had been centralized in the chancellery and really under Hindenburg for a couple of years before that. And so it was only a matter of time until someone who was bad grabbed the power. And so the struggle between the Reds and the Browns in Nazism, in pre-Nazi Germany, led to this kind of up-spiraling of radical sentiment that allowed Hitler in through the front door, not through the back door. Right? He was elected.
So you think communists could have also taken power?
I mean, there's no question communists could have taken power. They were a serious force in pre-Nazi Germany.
Do you think there was an underlying current that would have led to an atrocity if the communists had taken power?
It wouldn't have been quite the same atrocity, but obviously the communists in Soviet Russia at exactly this time were committing the Holodomor.
Yeah.
Right. So
I think you're persistent, dog. Holy fucking shit. Yeah, I think that when it comes to like people tend to become more authoritarian or more authoritarian leaning or sympathizing, the more their life feels like it's going, the more their life feels like or the world around them is falling apart, and you want someone to just come in and they want someone to just come in and just fix everything. Jesus Christ, I'll make friends with this person so he leaves me alone. Jesus Christ. I don't feel like it right now, my guy.
there were very few good guys in terms of good parties. The moderate parties were being dragged by the radicals into alliance with them to prevent the worst case scenario from the other guy, right? So if you look at, I'm sort of fascinated by the history of this period because it really does speak to how does a democracy break down. I mean, the 20s Weimar Republic was a very liberal democracy. How does a liberal democracy break down into complete fascism and then into genocide? And there's a character who was very prominent in the history of that time, named Franz von Papen, who was actually the second to last chancellor of the Republic before Hitler. So he was the chancellor, and then he handed over to Schleicher. And then Schleicher ended up collapsing, and that ended up handing power over to Hitler. It was Papen who had stumped for Hitler to become chancellor. Papen was a Catholic Democrat. He didn't like Hitler. He thought that Hitler was a radical and a nut job. But he also thought that Hitler, being a buffoon, as he saw it, was going to essentially be usable by the right forces in order to prevent the communists from taking power, maybe in order to restore some sort of legitimacy to the regime because he was popular, in order for Papen to retain power himself. And then immediately after Hitler taking power, Hitler basically kills all of Papen's friends. Papen, out of quote-unquote loyalty, stays on. He ends up helping the Anschluss in Austria. Now, all this stuff is really interesting, mainly because what it speaks to is the great lie we tell ourselves is that people who are evil are not like us. They're a class apart. People who do evil things, people who support evil people, they're not like us. And that's an easy call. Everybody in history who has sinned is a person who's very different from me. Robert George, the philosopher over at Princeton, he's fond of doing a sort of thought experiment in his classes where he asks people to raise their hand if they'd lived in Alabama in 1861. How many of you would be abolitionists? And everybody raises their hand. He says, of course that's not true. Of course that's not true. The best protection against evil is recognizing that it lies in every human heart and the possibility that it takes you over. And so you have to be very cautious in how you approach these issues. And the back and forth of politics, the sort of bipolarity of politics, the polarization in politics might be a better way to put it, makes it very easy to kind of fall into the rock'em sock'em robots that eventually could theoretically allow you to support somebody who's truly frightening and hideous in order to stop somebody who you think is more frightening and hideous. And you see this kind of language, by the way, now predominating almost all over the Western world, right? My political enemy is an enemy of democracy. My political enemy is going to end the republic. My political enemy is going to be the person who destroys the country we live in. And so that person has to be stopped by any means necessary. And that's dangerous stuff.
So the communists had to be stopped in Nazi Germany, and so they're the devil. And so any useful buffoon, as long as they're effective against the communists, would do. Do you ever wonder, because the people that are participating in evil may not understand that they're doing evil, do you ever sit back, in the quiet of your own mind and think, am I participating in evil?
I mean, so my business partner and I, one of our favorite memes is there's a British comedy show, the name escapes me, of these two guys who are members of the SS, and they're dressed in the SS uniforms and the black uniforms with the skulls on them, and they're saying to each other. One says to the other guy, you notice like the British, the symbol is something nice, and it's like an eagle, but it's a skull and crossbones. You see the Americans, you see their blue uniforms, they're very nice and pretty. Ours are jet black. Are we the baddies? And that's it. And the truth is, we look back at the Nazis and we say, well, of course they were the baddies. They wore black uniforms, and they had jackboots, and they had this and that. And of course they were the bad guys. But evil rarely presents its face so clearly. So yeah, I mean, I think you have to constantly be thinking along those lines, and hopefully you try to avoid it. You can only do the best that a human being can do. But yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. I would say that I spend in.
The sad reality is, people would rather focus on the evil people instead of, it's good to focus on them, yes, but rather than they'd rather focus on the evil people instead of focusing on the conditions that create evil people, because that's a much harder thing, and it usually means something that we have to do. There's like effort, like, oh, I have to participate in something now to stop the existence of evil people. Well, never mind, then. No, thank you. It was like, I don't even want to think about that. I'd rather just blame this person for being evil.
Inordinate amount of time reflecting on whether I'm doing the right thing. And I may not always do the right thing. I'm sure a lot of people think that I'm doing the wrong thing on a daily basis. But it's definitely a question that has to enter your mind as a historically aware and hopefully morally decent person.
Do you think you're mentally strong enough if you realize that you're on the wrong side of history to switch sides? Very few people in history seem to be strong enough to do that.
I mean, I think that the answer I hope would be yes. You never know until the time comes and you have to do it. I will say that having heterodox opinions in a wide variety of areas is something that I have done before. I'm the only person I've ever heard of in public life who actually has a list on their website of all the dumb, stupid things I've ever said. So where I go through and I either say, this is why I still believe this, or this is why what I said was terrible and stupid. Yeah. And I'm sure that list will get a lot new Yeah,
look forward to new additions to that
Yeah,
list.
exactly.
Yeah, it actually is a super, super long list. People should check it out. And it's quite honest and raw. What do you think about, it's interesting to ask you, given how pro-life you are, about Ye's comments about comparing the Holocaust to the 900,000 abortions in the United States a year?
So I'll take this from two angles. As a pro-life person, I actually didn't find it offensive, because if you believe, as I do, that unborn and preborn lives deserve protection, then the slaughter of just under 1 million of them every year for the last almost 50 years is a historic tragedy on par with a Holocaust. From the outside perspective, I get why people would say there's a difference in how people view the preborn as to how people view, say, a 7-year-old who's being...
Some people don't even some people don't even. Some people don't even argue that. They just say, uh, yeah, some people don't even argue that. It's just like, hey, can you force a person to stay pregnant? Can you do that? Can you? Someone's pregnant and someone's like, yeah, I don't want to be pregnant anymore. Sorry, nope, we're forcing you to. Nope, you don't. Nope, you're going to be forced to remain pregnant. Yep. Like, do I don't feel comfortable being able to do that to somebody. And even if it does mean someone's life is being taken away, it's like, what do you mean by life? Are you pro life or pro birth? Just as long as the child is born, that's all I need. Anything past that or beyond that, quality of life, whether the parents even have the capacity to take care of it, if it's going to fall into the system, is the kid going to be, I don't even, as long as they're born, all I'm focusing on born is them being born. Just like, that's a really, I feel like it's not a holistic view to the situation. I don't know why you would look at the entire situation of pregnancy and abortion like that. Yeah.
Killed in the Holocaust, like the visceral power and evil of the Nazis shoving full-grown human beings and small children into gas chambers can't be compared to a person who, even from a pro-life perspective, may not fully understand the consequences of their own decisions, or from a pro-choice perspective, fully understands the consequences, but just doesn't think that that person is a person, that's actually different. So I understand both sides of it. I wasn't offended by Ye's comments in that way, though, because if you're a pro-life human being, then you do think that what's happening is a great tragedy on scale that involves the dehumanization of an entire class of people, the preborn.
So the philosophically, you understand the comparison.
I do. Sure.
So in his comments, in the jumping from the individual to the group, I'd like to ask you, you're one of the most effective people in the world at attacking the left. And sometimes it can slip into attacking the group. Do you worry that that's the same kind of oversimplification that Ye is doing about Jewish people that you can sometimes do with the left as a group?
So when I speak about the left, I'm speaking about a philosophy. I'm not really speaking about individual human beings as the leftists like group and then try to name who the members of this individual group are. I also make a distinction between the left and liberals. There are a lot of people who are liberal who disagree with me on taxes, disagree with me on foreign policy, disagree with me on a lot of things. The people who I'm talking about generally when I talk about the left in the United States are people who believe that alternative points of view ought to be silenced because they are damaging and harmful simply based on the disagreement. So that's one distinction. The second distinction, again, is when I talk about the right versus the left, typically I'm talking about a battle of competing philosophies. And so I'm not speaking about typically, it would be hard to, if you put a person in front of me and said, is this person of the left or of the right? Having just met them, I wouldn't be able to label them in the same way that if you met somebody in the name of Greenstein, you'd immediately got you. Or you met a black person. And the adherence to a philosophy makes you a member of a group. If I think the philosophy is bad, that doesn't necessarily...
Sure. If you're only going after the idea itself, that's fine. But like sometimes going after a whole idea itself, when there are things in the idea that we could get something from, that like it's like throwing a baby out with the bathwater. Sure, let's say 80% of our ideology is destructive. That other 20%, that's how many? 300 to 400, bro. Maybe just 100, and we'll see how it goes. Like shit. But yeah, it's like, I wouldn't throw out the whole thing like that. It just doesn't seem smart. Like there could be something we could learn that because we decided to write off a whole ideology, a whole way of thinking, and not even examining it, or well, here are the areas where it's positive. It was like, nope, it's all. Damn, bro. I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I'll let you. I don't think so at the moment. Like, this nigga is thirsty for a fucking sale. Like, Jesus Christ. I had a feeling I didn't want to even talk to you. And now I know why. Like, hop off my nuts with this, bro.
Necessarily mean that you as a person are bad, but it does mean that I think your philosophy is bad.
Yeah, so the grouping is based on the philosophy versus something like a race, like this, the color of your skin, or race, is in the case of the Jewish people. So it's a different thing. You can be a little bit more nonchalant and careless in attacking a group because it's ultimately attacking a set of ideas.
Well,
right?
I mean, it's really nonchalant in attacking the set of ideas, and I don't know that nonchalant would be the way I'd put it. I tried to be exact when you don't always hit, but if I say that I oppose the communists, right, and then presumably I'm speaking of people who believe in the communist philosophy. Now, the question is whether I'm mislabeling, right? Whether I'm taking somebody who's not actually a communist and then shoving them in that group of communists, right? That would be inaccurate.
The dangerous thing is it expands the group, as opposed to you talking about the philosophy. You're throwing everybody who's ever said, I'm curious about communism, I'm curious about socialism, because there's like a gradient. It's like just throw something at you. I think Joe Biden said MAGA Republicans, right?
Right.
I think that's a very careless statement, because the thing you jump to immediately is like all
Everyone who
Republicans
voted for Trump.
for
Right.
Trump,
Right.
Versus I think in the charitable interpretation, that means a set of ideas.
Yeah, my actually problem with the MAGA Republicans line from Biden is that he went on in the speech that he made in front of Independence Hall to actually try and define what it meant to be a MAGA Republican who was a threat to the Republic, was the kind of language that he was using. And later on in the speech, he actually suggested, well, there are moderate Republicans, and the moderate Republicans are people who agree with me on like the Inflation Reduction Act. It's like, well, that can't be the...
Sure, I would agree. That is a stupid thing to say, but at the same time, if you don't understand, if you don't, in the same way that you can say, when I'm talking about leftists, I'm talking about an ideology. That's like they're doing the same thing. He's doing the same thing you're doing. He's not talking about Trump. He's talking about Trump, but he's talking about the ideology of people who are MAGA, who think that for whether you agree with them or not, think that every institution is failing them and is corrupt and all against them. The system is rigged against the people. System is rigged against Trump. The deep state don't want Trump in there. Like literally all of that stuff like that. And if you don't think the institutions are there for you, you'll be less likely to participate in voting, participate in protesting, less likely to, why would you even involve yourself with doing anything with the state at all if you think that their whole goal is to just shit on people, collect money, and allow people to die and suffer like this? Yeah. Actually fucking shits. Okay. But yeah, pretty much. I think, when you say MAGA Republican, it doesn't mean people who straight up vote for Trump. I feel like that's not, or at least because I'm not so political brained that's the first thing my brain goes to. I try to figure out, okay, what is this person actually trying to say? Even if the words that they're choosing are a bit annoying or abrasive or destructive even, what are they trying to say? What ideas are they trying to get across? That's where my focus is, but people are really caught up on the words themselves. And it's that's not. How about say they're a bad communicator, but I'm still going to put the effort into try to figure it out, instead of they're a bad communicator, I'm going to take it exactly as they said. That seems a bit boring.
The dividing line between a MAGA Republican and a moderate. Like a moderate Republican, somebody who agrees with you. You got to name me a Republican who disagrees with you fairly strenuously, but is not in this group of threats to the Republic. You make that distinction, we can have a fair discussion about whether the idea of election denial, for example, makes somebody a threat to institutions. That's a conversation that we can have, and then we'll have to discuss how much power they have, what the actual perspective is, delve into it. But I think that he was being overbroad and sort of labeling all of his political enemies under one rubric. Now, again, in politics, this sort of happens all the time. I'm not going to plead clean hands here because I'm sure that I've been inexact. But what would be good in that particular situation is for somebody to sort of read me back the quote, and I'll let you know where I've been inaccurate. I'll try to do that.
And also, you don't shy away from humor and occasional trolling and mocking and all that.
I had to close this because I don't think Discord. Do I have to run this as administrator? My Discord legit won't open. Yeah, I don't get it. My Discord will not open, so I don't know what to tell you, dog. Let's see what we should listen to. I'm gonna have to fucking shit. Yeah, let's go with this for now. Right around 8 o'clock, I'm probably going to stop the stream, restart the stream after I do some shit. After I prepare some food. Yeah.
That kind of stuff for the fun, for the chaos, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, I try not to do trollery for trollery's sake, but, if the show's not entertaining and not fun, people aren't going to listen. Right. And so, if you can't have fun with politics, the truth about politics is we all take it very seriously because it has some serious ramifications. Politics is Veep, it is not House of Cards. The general rule of politics is that everyone is a moron unless proven otherwise, that virtually everything is done out of stupidity rather than malice, and that if you actually watch politics as a comedy, you'll have a lot more fun. And so the difficulty for me is I take politics seriously, but also I have the ability to sort of flip the switch and suddenly it all becomes incredibly funny. Because it really is. Like, if you just watch it from a pure entertainment perspective, and you put aside the fact that it affects hundreds of millions of people, then watching, President Trump being president, I mean, he's one of the funniest humans who's ever lived. Watching Kamala Harris be Kamala Harris and talking about how much she loves Venn diagrams or electric buses, I mean, that's funny stuff. So if I can't make fun of that, then my job becomes pretty morose pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's funny to figure out what is the perfect balance between seeing the humor and the absurdity of the game of it versus taking it seriously enough because it does affect hundreds of millions of people. It's a weird balance to strike. It's like I am afraid with the internet that everything becomes a joke.
I totally agree with this. I will say this. I try to make less jokes about the ideas and more jokes about the people in the same way that I make jokes about myself. I'm pretty self-effacing in terms of my humor. I would say at least half the jokes on my show are about me. Right? When I'm reading ads for Tommy John and they're talking about their no wedgie guarantee, I'll say things like, that would help me in high school because it would have. I mean, just factually speaking. So, if I can speak that way about myself, I feel like everybody else can take it as well.
Difficult question. In 2017, there was a mosque shooting in Quebec City. 6 people died, 5 others seriously injured. The 27-year-old gunman consumed a lot of content online and checked Twitter accounts of a lot of people. But one of the people he checked quite a lot of is you, 93 times in the month leading up to the shooting. If you could talk to that young man, what would you tell him? And maybe other young men listening to this that have hate.
You are a fucking idiot. Why would you... That's what I would say to you people. I'm going to watch a dude that agrees with everything I say to hype myself up. And I'm going to do something in my head to where, like, well, they see the problem too. And since they see how big of a problem it is and they're saying it, I got to go out and do not... These people who will... Because now you're fucking it up for everybody. Now people just can't have conversations anymore because your crazy ass wants to actually react to everything to the point to where you're going to be willing to kill and murder and destroy, vandalize. Like, you're doing all of that. And then now when people are checking your history, trying to find out how you got this way, now people like Ben are going to get blamed now. He could have said some crazy shit. I don't know. That's possible. But it's like, how about y'all just not do this, like, celebrity, big name worship bullshit? Like, how about, oh, okay, that's an interesting thing. I'll think about that. I'll let it swirl around in my head a little bit and then move on. Like, y'all don't do that. Y'all are like, oh, this guy said it. Must be true. I gotta go do some shit. And you lose yourself off of people online. Just don't do that. How about that?
In their heart, in that.
No matter what someone online said, you chose to go pick up a gun and light some people up. You did that. 9 times out of 10, they didn't tell you to do that. Otherwise, they would definitely be charged for incitement, 100%. But if they're not doing that, and you decide to, well, I'm going to read between the lines, dog. I know what this man is telling me. I don't know why I sound a little bit like Martin Luther King.
That same way. What would you tell him?
You're getting it wrong. If anything that I or anyone else in mainstream politics says drives you to violence, you're getting it wrong. You're getting it wrong. Now, again, when it comes to stuff like this, I have a hard and fast rule that I've applied evenly across the spectrum, and that is I never blame people's politics for other people committing acts of violence unless they're actively advocating violence. So when Phantom Bernie Sanders shoots up a congressional baseball game, that is not Bernie Sanders' fault. I may not like his rhetoric, I may disagree with him on everything. Bernie Sanders did not tell somebody to go shoot up a congressional baseball game. When a nutcase in San Francisco goes and hits Paul Pelosi with a hammer, I'm not going to blame Kevin McCarthy, the House Speaker, for that. When somebody threatens Brett Kavanaugh, I'm not going to suggest that was Joe Biden's fault because it's not Joe Biden's fault. I mean, we can play this game all day long, and I find that the people who are most intensely focused on playing this game are people who tend to oppose the politics of the person, as opposed to actually believing sincerely that this has driven somebody into the arms of the god of violence. But, you know, I have 4.7 million Twitter followers. I have 8 million Facebook followers. I have 5 million YouTube followers. I would imagine that some of them are people who are violent. I would imagine that some of them are people who do evil things or want to do evil things. And I wish that there were a wand that we could wave that would prevent those people from deliberately or mistakenly misinterpreting things as a call to violence. It's just a negative byproduct of the fact that you can reach a lot of people. And so, you know, if somebody could point me to the comment that I suppose, quote unquote, drove somebody to go and literally murder human beings, then I would appreciate it. So I could talk about the comment. But I don't, mainly because I just think that if we remove agency from individuals, and if we blame broad-scale political rhetoric for every act of violence, we're not going to... The people who are going to pay the price are actually the general population, because free speech will go away. If the idea is that things that we say could drive somebody who is unbalanced to go do something evil, the necessary byproduct is hate. Is that speech is a form of hate. Hate is a form of violence. Speech is a form of violence. Speech needs to be curbed. And that, to me, is deeply disturbing.
So,
I understand what people say when they say speech can be a form of violence. But I'm going to have to say, we're going to have to parse out that there can be different types of violence. Self-defense, in some cases, is violence. Are we going to get rid of self-defense now because it's violence? Or are there some forms of violence that we are okay with? Like, that, why not just say that? I don't agree that this type of violence should be acceptable. And then you have the argument there. You don't just get rid of free speech. Like, you don't just do that. Because it's just like, what if... Okay, fine. You telling me to get rid of free speech should be removed. Because it's making me uncomfortable about what I thought my country stood for. Is that reasonable to you? Oh, it's not. Oh, okay. Yeah. Anyway, y'all, I'm going to cut the stream for now and then cut it back on in a bit. Hopefully by 8:30. I gotta prepare some food and do some shit, so...